Hello guys, this is Professor Al-Jafri, and today we will continue our lecture from we stopped last week. Okay, so we have covered the data type of integer, float, boolean, as well as string and lists. Another interesting data type is called tuple. Tuple, so in addition to lists, Python also supports tuples, which in many ways behave like lists, except that tuples are immutable. Remember guys, when I say immutable, that we cannot modify the value of the items in the tuple, okay, using the offset or the indexing operation. So a tuple object contains a sequence of values separated by a comma and enclosed in regular parentheses instead of the square parentheses. So as you can see guys, here I have a list, so it's enclosed with a square parenthesis. Meanwhile, here I have a tuple and it's enclosed with the regular parenthesis. However, actually guys, to be honest with you, the parentheses are optional. So if I open idle here and show you, so if I open idle here and I say that A is equal to 1, 2, and 3, all right? So, and then I do type A, so it says tuple, but I can do the same thing. A is equal to 1, 2, 3 without having the brackets or the parentheses, and I do type A again. It's still class tuple, as you can see that. Okay, now when it comes to the tuple, as I said, we cannot modify an item in the tuple because it's immutable. All right, so let's try it. So I want to evaluate here A to the index 0. So what this will give me 1. We know that. So if I want to do this and change the value of A0 to becomes 100. So in lists we can do that. However, in tuples, this will give us what? A type error, because the tuple is an immutable object and that does not support a modification. Another interesting thing that I would like to cover with you guys is that how can I create a one item tuple? Okay, so let's do that. So suppose that I have days, and days I would like it to be a tuple, and days I want to make it as, what is today? Today is clearly Monday, so I'm gonna do Monday, all right, and do this. Now, because I have the parenthesis, if I do type days, what do you expect this Python will give me? I'm expecting that it will give me tuple, but the thing is, it's going to give me a string. Okay, so how can I tell Python that I want days to be considered a one item tuple? So in order to do that, you know, the parenthesis here, it's actually refers to what's called like an algebraic expression. So if we would like to specify or to tell the interpreter that days here is tuple, we need to add the comma. So let's do it here, and let's verify what is the type of the object days here. It should be tuple. Is that clear, guys? I hope it's clear to you. So basically, it's clear that the parentheses are treated as a parenthesis that should be in an arithmetic expression. So how do we create one element tuple? Is by adding a comma to tell the interpreting that this is a one item tuple object. All right, I hope this is clear for you guys. Okay, so as we saw here, so we have 1, 2, and 3. And I would like, I noticed that 3 here is a number, and I want to make it as a string. So if I try to do so, I'm gonna get what? I'm gonna get an error, because tuple is an immutable object type. So one may ask me, why do we need tuple? Actually, tuple is much faster than list for indexing and hashing. And this is, you will cover it in the data structure course. This is outside the scope of this course, but the thing is, tuple are very quick when it comes to operation, and it supports the same operation like lists, except those which modify the values of the tuple. Okay, so basically tuple is used for hashing and indexing, and this is what you will understand in the data structure course. Okay, so we have so far seen how to use several types of values that Python supports, such as integer, Boolean, string, list, and tuple. So our presentation has been informal to emphasize that often intuitive approach Python use to manipulate values. Intuition take us only so far, though at this point we step back for a moment to understand more formally what is how Python understand the value that I assign it for a variable. So in Python, every value, whether a simple integer such as a 3 or a more complicated integer such as a list inside a list, is stored in a memory as an object. Okay, and it's useful to think of an object as a container for the value that sit inside the computer memory. I'm going to show you in the next slides what do I mean by that. The container idea captures the motivation behind objects. The actual representation and processing of an integer in our example is so complicated. So let me go back to idle, and let's say help integer. So actually the simple integer that, okay, let me delete this. So we know that 3 plus 5 is equal to 8 because it's an integer. So a equal to 3 plus 5, and we type a, and it's an integer. However, this addition operation, it's much complicated than what you can see, guys, because if I type help, actually we have a class or a blueprint called integer, and if I type help integer, I will see that integer has been implemented by the developers of Python, and the addition itself is more complicated than what we will see. So let's go and see here how the addition is taking place. So as we can see, in order to do the addition, we have to do something called, to define a method for the class itself and to do the addition. Okay, so this is we will cover it in the object-oriented section. However, for now, I just want you to understand that, doing arithmetic with integer value is straightforward for us because objects are created in a containers that hide the complexity of the integer storage and the processing, so that the programmer only needs to know what kind of object he's dealing with, as well as what kind of operation that this kind of object supports. Okay, so Python is said to be an object-oriented language because values are stored always in objects. In a programming language other than objects such as C++, values of a certain type are stored in abstract entities such as objects and must be explicitly defined in the memory. For instance, if we take Java, for instance, or C++, okay, so in C++, I have to say integer x, and then I have to say x equal to 5. And if I say that x is equal to 5.1 in C++, this will throw an error in C++. However, in Python, this can be done This can be done so easily because, as I mentioned, any kind of values is stored in the memory as an object, and the interpreter can automatically evaluate what type of objects is that and correlate it to the class that has been developed to support that type of the object. So the term class is used to refer to types whose values are stored in objects. Because every value in Python is stored in objects, every Python type is a class. So for now, we will just use the term class and type interchangeably until we get to the point where we can explain what do we mean by classes and how we can implement our own class. Okay? Okay, so as we can see, A here is belonging to the class integer. B is belonging to the class float. C is belonging to the class 3 is a string. And D is what, guys? D is a list. So if I go and verify the type of those objects, so A will give me an integer, B will give me a float, C will give me a string, and D will give me a list. So to summarize it, object X is of type integer. That means that object X belongs to the class integer. Okay? So object B is said to be a float type because it belongs to class float. Okay? And so on. All right? Let's move to another topic. Okay. So it's the object that has a type, not the variable. Okay? Because as I told you, like anything, any value you store it, like any value, it will be stored in the memory as an object. Okay? And that object will determine what kind of operation that can be supported on that type. All right? Okay. Let's move ahead to another topic. So if you remember, guys, I have told you that when it comes to the integer has no limit. Okay, actually the only thing that can limit the integer is the size of your memory, is the size of the RAM that you have in your computer. However, when it comes to the float itself has what? Float itself has a limit, and it can be represented only by a 64 digits. So what does that mean? That means any number that belongs to the float class, okay, can only be represented given that it is what? It is between 0 and 2 to the power 64. Okay? So, as you can see, if I try to evaluate 2 to the power 1024, and because this is an integer, this will give me a value, because I told you that when it comes to the integer, we don't have a limitation. However, when I just put the floating point here, and I try to evaluate the same expression, it's supposed to give me the same value, but because Python understands that this is what? This is a float. So what will happen is I'm exceeding the maximum allowed value to represent a float data type, and as such I'm getting an overflow, which says that result is too large. Okay? Similarly, sometimes in Python, small values are approximated. So if I try to to evaluate 2 to the power minus 1075. So instead of showing a scientific number which has a very it's a very fractional part, Python will evaluate this to 0. So let me show you an example of what do I mean about approximation. So let's get back to our idle, and let's say that I would like to evaluate 2 to the power of minus 100. So you can see that Python will show me a scientific notation stating that this is a fraction and multiplied to the power of e minus 31, which is like 10 to the power minus 31. So it's approximating this. So if I keep going to the negative part, 2 to the power minus 1705, this will give me 0. Is that clear, guys? I hope it's clear for you. Okay, so I would like again to emphasize about an object types determine what value it can have and how it can be manipulated. This is like a special feature of Python. You will not see that on Java. You will not see that on any other high-level language. Okay? Just in Python, the value of the object determine the type of the object, determine the class of that object. Now, let's revise the, we already saw the operation that are used to manipulate the numbers. So if you remember, we have going over the algebraic operation, and the absolute here, this is a built-in function that will give you the absolute value of a number. So if I go here and try to, okay, all right. So if I type a equal to absolute minus 50, and this will give me what? This will give me plus 50. Okay, and I try to evaluate a, this is plus 50. As you can see, this is plus 50. So we have seen the algebraic operation, and we have seen the comparison operation, okay? And we saw some logical operation as well. So what are, if you remember, what are the priority to evaluate this kind of operation when it comes to the Python interpreter? The order in which operators are evaluated is defined either explicitly using the parenthesis. If we remember, like if we have parenthesis, the parenthesis will be executed first, or implicitly using the operation precedence, as we will see, and we will do the evaluation from left to right if the operators has the same precedence. Okay, so some will ask me, okay, what's this? Okay, this is what? This is to identify that we are doing here a list. And here, this is the positional, okay, when we have, like, let's suppose that, let me go back to idle, and let's suppose that I have A equal to 1, 2, and 3, all right? And I'm gonna do here 4 multiply A to A of the offset 1. So this will give me 8. So basically what we'll evaluate first is this part, then the multiplication will take place. So first Python has to determine what will be the value stored in A1, which will be equal to 2, and then multiply it by 4, okay? Now, some will ask me, okay, what about the plus x and the minus x? Okay, in Python again, plus x and minus x will indicate the sign of the number. So if I say minus 5 will be executed before I say multiply by 3. So let's go back and evaluate this again. So I say minus 5 multiplied by 15 or by 10. Okay, so I want to get 50 minus 50. So that's what happened, okay? All right, guys. And I think I have explained that topic very well. So I'm going to move forward. All right. So an important thing to understand that since we're dealing with object-oriented and the classes, each type in Python is related to a class that has been already developed, we can do the assignment implicitly, like we can say that x equal to 3 implicitly, okay, and x will be evaluated to 3, or by invoking the constructor. So if the constructor is a special function that is defined in the class implementation that used to explicitly initiate an integer object. So if I say x equal to integer 3 and evaluate x, this will give me 3. So as you can see, I can explicitly specify that x belongs to a class, it's an integer object, and its value, the value will be determined inside the parenthesis here, and this is an argument here. This is an argument or a parameter, okay? So whatever the value I determine here will determine the value of x. So what if I used integer without specifying any argument inside the parenthesis? So what will happen is it will give me the default value, which is equal to 0. Similarly, if I do that to float, will give me the default value of float, which is 0.0. For string, it's going to give me an empty string. For list, it's going to give me an empty list, okay? So as you can see, to create an empty string, we can either implicitly do it by saying that, like, for instance, C equal to just an empty string, or we can say D equal to str, like, sorry, I put it minus. So here, D equal to str, and let's verify, is C equal to D? If it gives me true, that means that both methods are used to create an empty string. Apparently it's true. All right. Okay. So let's move to what if I would like to convert objects from one type to another. Okay. So I can do it implicitly. So similar to what I've shown you before. So if I say here in Python, like if I say I have 5 plus 1.1, the results will be a float. Okay? Okay. And look at this. If I have a true plus 0, this will give me 1. So the reason for this strange behavior is that the Boolean, as you can see, the Boolean type is actually a subtype of the integer type. And similarly, the integer is a subtype of the float type. Okay? So basically, if I go back to idle here, and I say like C equal to false, what's wrong with my keyboard? It has to be capitalized, plus 0, this will give me 0. Okay? But if I say C equal to true plus 4, this will give me C, will give me 5. Type C, this will give me that C belongs to class integer. Now, let's do a tricky thing. C equal, D equal to true plus false. Okay? So I'm going to evaluate D. What do you think the output will be? Try it yourself, okay? So the output is still like, because this is an arithmetic operation, I'm not doing a logical operation, which is AND. Still D, if I type D, it's going to be an integer, okay? So please pay attention to these tricks, because I'm gonna try to, like, to trick you in the exam. So pay attention to whatever I'm saying here, okay? Now, we can also convert the variable or the value by explicitly invoking the constructor itself, okay? So suppose, let's say that I would like to convert 456, which is a string, to an integer. So simply I can just do what? Use the constructor integer, wrap it with that string, and this will give me a string itself. Now let's take a look at this example here. 5.6, and I try to convert it using the integer. This will give me an error. Why? Because 5.6 doesn't belong to the integer itself. It's gonna belong to the float. So if I use the float to do that, like, let's do it with you guys here. If I do, okay, let's do str equal to 5.6 and type str. It's a string, okay? Now, if I do this, float str, it gives me what? It gives me the float equivalent of that string, as long as it's a number, okay? But I can't do, like, if I say a equal to high, okay? And I try to say float A, this will throw an error. Because I value error, which we couldn't convert a string to the float, okay? Because the number, it's like here, it's letters, it's not numbers, okay? Okay, so using the integer constructor and wrapping it around the objects can convert a float objects by removing the decimal part, and can convert from a string objects if the number, like if we are representing a number itself, as we saw here, okay? How like for the flow itself, yes. Now say that I wanna, like, I wanna try to trick the interpreter. So I know that 2 to the power 124, if I evaluate it in integer, it's gonna give me a number. But suppose that I wanna convert it to float, this will create an overflow if the integer is too much to be converted to a float, okay? Okay. Now, similarly, we can convert anything, anything we can convert it to string, okay? And we will get what the string value of that. I hope this is clear for you guys. Now, a simple Python program is considered as a sequence of Python statements that are stored in like in a text file called the module. If you remember here, guys, if I want to create file, new file, this new file, it's called the module. So whatever I'm gonna type here, like print hi ITI1120 C students, so this itself is called a module. And that module, if I want to run it, I have to guys, to like run that module, I have to save it. So I'm gonna save it like nothing fancy, because it's, it's a simple one, simple. And run, boom. So that's what happened. So after you store that text file, which is called the module, and you execute it from the interactive development environment, which is in our case, it's the idle, it's gonna what? It's gonna show the output on the on the console, in the interactive console. So say what will be the order of the execution for a simple program like this? So line 1, hello Python developer. So this is what will happen. It will print this line first, and then it's gonna go to this line, welcome to the world of Python, and then like first it will assign a string called hello Python developer to like a variable called line 1, and the string will be assigned welcome to the world of Python to line 2. And now I'm gonna print line 1 first and line 2 first. Now supposedly, let's suppose that I made a mistake here at line 1. I'm not gonna reach to this line, okay? I'm not gonna reach to this line. Like the interpreter will throw me an error saying that you have a syntax error somewhere here. So let's like suppose that like I, instead of having like those parentheses, I put like a curly parenthesis. So what will happen? This will give me an error. Okay. So we have like we have shown like multiple or we have gone through the built-in function print. So the built-in function print take any argument inside the parenthesis and will print the string representation. Okay, so the string representation of the whatever like you throw at the parenthesis will be printed. What do I mean by string representation? The string representation is totally different than the string. Okay, so the string representation, first of all, it's gonna be, there will be no quotation whatsoever, and it will be easily to be read by the people. Okay, now let me go back to Python and here do this. Okay, so if I say a equal to print my name is Muhammad. Okay, so actually what will happen here, Python will evaluate this statement and it will it will show that it will show a print statement called my name is Muhammad. Okay, without what? Without a parenthesis. But does that mean a is a string type? That's not true. A is something called non-data type, and we can prove it by using the type command and use a. Okay, so a belongs to class non-type. So let's say that I want to do this and add it. I know I'm not the best, but I'm gonna do this. Is the best. I'm gonna get an error because I'm not the best. No, I'm getting an error because I cannot do a concatenation between a string itself is the best and the print. Okay, because let's do it again, guys. Let's be more clear. So let's say that b equal is the best and try to do a plus b. I'm gonna get an error. Okay, because I cannot do an addition between a non-type and a string type. Okay, I just want you to understand the difference between the string representation and the string itself. The string itself is a value that belongs to the class string, and the non-type is the print value of a string. Okay, or whatever like inside the brackets of the print function. Now let's go back to our slide, and as you can see here, I can print an integer, I can print like a float, I can print a string, and whenever I print a string, there will be no parenthesis and no quotation, sorry, and I can print a list. Okay, now what if I do here like a print by itself? Okay, if I do print by itself, so people, they can use that in order to do what? To do to do a line, and and to move to the next line. So it will show me nothing. Okay, but let's go back to my fancy program that I made here and do print like this. Oh, this will give me an error. and do print I hope all is well with you. See that I'm using a lot of keywords, but once I put it inside the code, it's gonna be a string, so I don't need to worry about that. Okay. Now, if I run that, this will be printed in a line, and this will be printed in a new line because I use this. Okay, I use the empty. I use the empty parenthesis print to specify a new line. Now, another thing I want to show, discuss with you guys, is the print can take multiple parentheses, multiple arguments, multiple parameters. So I can say print, okay, and I can say 5, and I can say okay, let's make 2 the best. As you can see, print now has 3 parameters, okay? And I just want you not to be tricked by this kind of command. If I say print, my name is plus Jeffrey, okay, and I do this, plus who is your professor. Okay, let's do here double, okay, double quotation. Now, can you tell me how many arguments this print function has? So, you know, if you take a look, you will say, okay, this is 3 strings, so basically it's a 3. Okay, you know what? And I want to do here plus 5. So how many arguments? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 arguments. But actually that's not the case. Whatever will happen is this is an expression, a concatenation expression that has to be evaluated first. Okay, you know, 4 multiplied by 5. Okay, that has to be evaluated first, and at the end it's gonna be 1 string. So this is only 1 argument, 1 parameters. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna cover how to add spaces between what. So if like I want to do this, like I can I will do here \t. Okay. So, and to add a space, a tab space, I will cover it later on, but not for this lecture. All right, guys. Okay. Now, what if, guys? Okay, we have covered the print, the built-in function print. What if, guys, I would like to input, you know, I would like to input a value to the program, and I would like to request that value to be entered but interactively by the user. Okay, this can be done thankfully to the built-in function that's called input. So the input function can be used in order to ask the user to interactively assign the value of a variable, or like to input a message, an interactive message, like to your program. So I can use here, as you can see, I can say input, enter your name. And what will happen here, what will happen when you execute this, a message will be showing that enter your name, and then the user has to enter anything using the keyboard, okay? But let's suppose that I entered, enter your name is printed, and then I entered Michael, okay? Now, Michael is a string type by the user, and it's assigned to what, guys? It's assigned to the variable name, okay, using that assignment. Okay, so when I evaluate name, it's gonna give me a string objects that's equal to Michael, and it will be stored in the memory at the variable pointed by name. Okay, now the input, unfortunately, the input can be used to just ask the user to enter a string, but we can do some workaround to convert that string to what? To numbers, if you would like, or even to lists. Okay, now let's take a look as an example first of how can we create such an interactive program by using the input function. So let's say that here I want to do a program, and that program will print your first and last name, and then print hello to the world of Python. So what I have to do is I have to use the function input here, and I can use this optional message to tell the user that please enter your first name, and then when this line is executed, it's gonna this line will never be executed last here unless the user input anything here. He has to input anything, otherwise the program will not go to the second line. Okay, then after that I'm doing a concatenation. So hello, whatever string he input there, so let's say Muhammad Al-Jafri, and after I print that, this is I'm printing 3 points, and then welcome to the world of Python. But let's see exactly what will happen. So the first line, I have to enter something. So suppose that I entered Michael, and the last name is Jordan. So hello, Michael Jordan, welcome to Python. Okay. By default, the print, line 1 has an int delimiter, which is /n. I will show it when we discuss the print and the format function in details. And this will create a new line, and then we will print welcome to the world of Python. Okay. So what if I would like to, I want the user to interactively enter non-string input, such as a number. Now, the problem with that, guys, if I open the idle here, okay, let's do the idle, and I do the following, okay? So, sorry. Okay, if I say x equal to input, okay, and enter a value for x. Okay, and I execute this line. Okay, well, what happened? What did I do wrong? Oh yeah, I forget the code here. Sorry. Enter the value of x. So I did enter 5. Okay. Now, if I evaluate x, oh sorry, you see that it gave me an error because I did the capital X. If I evaluate x small, it's a string, okay? And I can actually, like, you know, make sure that it's a string by using, you know, instead of type, I want to do something more creative. Equal to, you know, 5 here. This will give me false. But if I do it equal to the string 5, remember the constructor, this will give me true. So the input function will always treat whatever the user types as a string. So how can we solve this kind of issue? So remember, like we discussed the constructors, and we can, you know, wrap the input, that input function with the what? With the constructor of the targeted data type. So for instance, I can use integer input, enter your age, and this will give me what? This will for sure, you know, convert the string, which is 18, to like an integer part. And this solution will work. But however, you know, we don't know like what does the user type, you know? We have to make sure that the user enter the number. Okay, let's say the user entered, you know, 18.5, or let's say the user entered like a string. So what will happen? We don't know. We will get an error. Okay, so let's say the other solution is to use another built-in function called evaluate. So the evaluate will do the easy job for us. So instead of just wrapping the message with wrapping the constructor with the input functions, we can wrap it with the evaluate, and the evaluate automatically will give us what? Will give us the targeted data value that we want. So as you can see, when I say evaluate 18, it's gonna give me 18, which belongs to the integer. If I say evaluate the string here to 3 plus 5, this will what? Evaluate first will do the addition here, you know, will make it 8, and then it will convert it to a list. Now let's say evaluate x. Do I have x? No, this will give me an error because x has never been defined. So the function evaluate is a powerful function that takes a string as an input and evaluate it to a Python expression. Okay, I hope this is clear for you guys. You know, so what did I mean by wrapping? Okay, let's say here, wrapping the input with the constructor is like this: integer, boom, and I close that. Okay, and now if I enter 15 and type x, it's an integer. You see that? But let's say that the user, you know, the user entered, okay, the user, instead of entering a number, he entered, you know, a string. This will give me an error. Okay. So guys, here I would like you to do this exercise. Take 1 minute from your time. I want you to write a program. This program requests the username, requests the age, and compute the age, the user age on 1 year from now, and prints the message showing like this. So for instance, enter your name, your name is Mary, enter your age 17, and the message showing is the name of the user. You will be like 17 plus 1, which is equal to 18 next year. Can you do that? So let's translate this, English instruction into Python. So request the username. It's simply what an input function that will include this message, which is enter your name as a string, and then we'll wait until the user enter your age, and we will do the evaluate, or we will wrap it using the integer, and then prints the message showing. So we have to use function print here. So we'll print what was the value of the name, and you will be what was the value of the variables assigned here plus 1, and then we add like another string called next year and the exclamation mark. So let me show you. So name, input, enter your name, age, so I wrap it with the constructor, or I can use evaluate, okay? And here what I'm doing is I can do a print directly, or I can simply say name plus, name, which is a string. I can concatenate it, you will be, and here look what I did. Here I did use the constructor of string to convert age plus 1, which will be like, in my case, if I enter 17, it's going to be 18, and then it will be converted to string. So I can do the concatenation, and next year, and exclamation mark. So no problem with that. Okay. Since the election is taking place today, I want you to do this exercise. Request the username, request the user age, and print a message saying whether the user is eligible to vote or not. So how do we know that the user is eligible to vote or not? So in Canada, if you are above 18, you are eligible to vote. Otherwise, you will not be able to vote. So this indicates that we need a condition. We need to specify a condition in our program. The way to do it is using what is referred to a if statement. So if statement has multiple versions in Python. Today we will discuss just the first two types, which is the one-way if statement and the two-way if statement. The one-way if statement, it will start by the keyword if, then you specify your condition here and the indented code block. So what if the condition is true, this code block will be what? Will be executed. Otherwise, this code block will be executed, okay? So this non-indented statement will be executed regardless if the condition, if it's true or false, okay? So let's take a look here. If the temperature is 86, print it is hot. Be sure to drink liquids, and this is non-indented. So if I enter the temperature, which is greater than 86, those two lines will be printed, and after that, I'm gonna print goodbye, okay? If the value of the temperature was equal to 86 or less than 86, these two lines will not be printed, and the print goodbye will be shown in your console. So you remember, this is what's called a flow chart. And as you can see, if the temperature is greater than 86, if the condition is true, the value of the temperature here is equal to 90. So the condition is true. So I'm gonna print it's hot. Be sure to drink liquids and print goodbye. If the temperature is 50, what will happen? This line will be executed, and since the condition is false, I'm gonna jump what? To print goodbye. Okay? So I want you to do this exercise, guys. I want you to pause the video and do this exercise. I want you to write a corresponding if statement. If the age is greater than 62, then print you can get a social security benefits. You know, you are at retirement stage. If the string large bonuses appears in string report, then print vacation time. If hits is greater than 10 and shield is 0, then print you're dead. Okay? So let's translate these English words into an equivalent Python words. So if age is greater than, so what I have to do is just do age, let's say age here, age. If age is greater than 62, so you see that I use just greater because in my question I did not specify greater than or equal. Then indented code block, which is print, you can get social security benefits. By default, idle will do the indentation for you. Okay? So, as you can see, if the age is 45, this will not be printed. But if the age is 65, you can get social, you see that? This will not be printed. But here, you can get social security benefits because my age is equal to 65. Or some of you can use like the input function to to write input. Yeah, please enter your age, and based on that age, instead of assigning two values, we will wait for the user to assign them. For the second one, if the string large bonuses appears in string report, okay? So you have to assume that there is what? There is two strings that you have. So, the first string called report, no bonuses this year. And we use the in operation. So if large bonuses in report, print vacation time. So as you can see, there is no large bonuses in report. So this will give us false, and as such, I'm not gonna print this line. However, if I assign report large bonuses this year, and if large bonuses, this substring appears in the whole string report, which is the first two words, then I can print vacation time. As you can see, I did that. Now the last one, as you can see, I have and, okay? So my condition has to use what? The logical operator and, okay? So, as you can see, hits greater than 10 and shield is 0. So it's equal 0, print you're dead. Okay? So if hits equal to 12, okay, and shield is equal to 0, what will happen? This will be printed. Now, suppose that hits and shield, okay, this is parallel assignment called hits and shield. You can assign them at, at the same line, okay? So to demonstrate that with you guys, let's go here to Python. I can say A, B equal to 4 and 5, okay? And I can say what's the value of A? What's the value of A is 4. What's the value of B? Is 5. Okay, so if hits and shield equal to 12 and 2, so basically this condition is true, but the other condition is false. So I'm not going to print anything. Okay, the indentation is critical when it comes to like the if statement. So can you tell me what is the difference between this code block and this code block? This code block, if my goal is to print goodbye at all time, this is not the case here. Okay, so as you can see, this one, if the condition is true, I'm gonna print it's hot, drink liquid, and print goodbye regardless of the value of your condition. But for this statement, you know, I will not print anything unless the condition is true. So indentation is crucial, guys, when it comes to if statement. Now the two-way if statement, so if the condition is satisfied, you will do something, and if otherwise, you will do something else, okay? So basically, so you have the if, you specify the condition, and don't forget the column here. And after that, else, to specify what if the condition is false, you will do another statement, and you know, and at the end, you can non-indent the statement that you wanna do, in my case, which is goodbye, which will be printed otherwise. So if the temperature is 86, you print it's hot, be sure to drink liquids. Otherwise, else if the temperature value is less than or equal 86, it's not hot, bring a jacket. Okay, so if the temperature is 90, what's gonna be printed? It's hot, be sure to drink liquid, and print goodbye. Those three statements will be what? The red ones will be executed. If it's 50, what, like, you know, that the condition here is false, as such, those statements will be skipped, and I'm gonna print it's not hot, bring a jacket, and goodbye. Okay, so this is the full flow chart. Okay, guys, I want you to do this. You remember our program: request the username, request the user age, and print a message saying whether the user is eligible to vote or not. So as I told you, like in Canada, if you're 18 and above, you can vote. Otherwise, you cannot vote. So you have to do this exercise, and you know, I'm gonna give you the solution momentarily, but pause the video and try to do it yourself. Okay, now this time request the username. Okay, request the username. So you do not assign a value for the username. You have to ask the user to interactively input the name. Okay, so we have to use what? Input, enter your name, and request the user age. We can use what? Age, and wrap input the user age with integer, or we can use it with an evaluate. We did it before with integer, with the integer constructor. Let's do it with the evaluate. And if the condition is true, so we have to specify if the user is less than 18, then he is not capable to vote. However, if he is else, he can be what? He will be capable to vote. So let's take a look here. This is input function, will ask the user to enter the username. The age here will be entered as a string, but it will be converted automatically to an integer, or like to a float if the user, like, you know, he entered 17.5. And if age is less than 18, so this message will be printed. Okay, the name, the value, the variable name, which is a string. So say that he, like, you know, she input Mary, you cannot vote. Okay, else, okay, if Mary's age is 18 and above, she can vote. Another way to implement this function is to say if age is greater than or equal 18, print name, you can vote. Else, you cannot vote. Name plus you cannot vote. Okay, so guys, when it comes to Python, there is something called execution control structures. Those, the one that we covered, the one-way if statement and the two-way if statements, are part of the execution control structures, and they call execution control structure because they control the flow of the execution of the program. Okay. Another type of execution called structure is the iteration structure, and the iteration structure will allow you to repetitively execute a block or of code or a statement multiple times. An example for that iteration structure is the for loop statement. Okay, so the for loop is as simple as it is. What you have to do is to use the keyword for. Now suppose that I have the string apple here, and I want to print the characters of that, each character in apple. So I have a string apple, so I will do the keyword for car, if car, which is the variable here that I'm checking, in names. Remember that it's an in operation. So if this character, which is a substring, appears in that string, print that car. Okay, so for each car, it will be printed. Okay, so what will happen now? It will print A. Okay, it will print B, P, sorry, and P, 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 L, E. Okay, and after that, there is no more car. So that's why the program will stop at E. Okay, now, so we can, we can iterate over a sequence as long as we have a sequence. This will apply for a string, and it will apply to what? To list itself. Okay, so the sequence can be a string or can be a list. So look at this. So for word in this, if top in what, I can combine both if and for to to print whatever words that I want to print from that list. So if top, okay, so look at this. I'm gonna print stop, I'm gonna print desktop, I'm not gonna print post, and then I'm gonna print top. Okay, so that's what happened. So the general template for the for loop is for variable in a sequence, and you have an indented code block, and after that you will get back to the sequence line of code that you need to execute. Now let's get back to our example here. So what will happen here, as I told you, we're gonna print stop desktop, we're gonna skip post, and we will print top. Okay, post, you see the word post doesn't have top. As such, I'm gonna skip it, and then I'm gonna go to top, and then I'm gonna print down because it's not indented, so it will be executed regardless of this or not. Okay, so I want you to do this exercise, to pause the video and do this exercise. Request a word from the user and print the characters in the word from left to right, one per line, like what? Like omnipotent here. So what we have, request a word from the user. That means I have to use the input function. And so I will say word equal to input. Please enter the word. And for car in word, print what? Car. So here I said name, enter a word, and print. Okay, because we have here the word spelled out, so print the word spelled out. And here what we have to say is print, like for car in name, print car. Okay, because we have this message, so as I need to execute this line, which is print the word spelled out. Okay, so we can iterate over a sequence, over a data type that has a sequence, such as what? Such as the string and the list. But what if I would like to iterate over numbers? Okay, and those numbers are not in the list. So what I have to do is use a built-in function called range. That built-in function that's called range can be used to iterate over numbers, and it has 3 versions. So if I say for I in range n, I will iterate over the numbers from 0 up to n minus 1. Okay? And for, as you can see, for I in range 4, I will iterate from 0 to 3. This is what I print here. And it has another, like the function range has another format, which is instead of starting by 0, we put the start point and the end point minus 1. Okay? So in this case, like for instance, for I in range 2 to 6, what I'm gonna do is, like, I'm gonna incrementally start from 2 up to 6 incrementally by 1. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, and 5. When I reach 5, I'm gonna stop because it's n minus 1. And I can have another version of range that I can determine the step size. Okay, so the step size is C. So instead of just incrementally going by 1, I can go by what, guys? I can go by the step size. So let me give you an example. So for I in range 2, 16, 4. So I will start by 2, then I will add 4 to 2. This will be equal to 6. Then I will add 6 to 4. This will be equal to 10. And then I will add 4 to 10. It's going to be 14. All right. Like while you are in Brightspace, go to Python resources and Python visualizer. Okay. And at Python visualizer here, let's type for I in range, open parenthesis, 2 to 16, 4. Okay, that was our example. Then don't forget the colon to indicate that this will start like an indentation. Print I. Okay, that's it. Let's visualize our execution. Okay, so next, what will happen? I is equal to 2. That she's like I is she's in range, so this will be printed. Then I will be equal. I will add 4 to I, so I will be equal to 6, and I'm gonna go up. It's in range, so it will be printed. Now I is equal to 10, and since I is equal to 10, it's in range, so this will be equal. This will be printed. I will equal to 14 when I add 4, and this will be printed. Okay, and then what will happen? I'm gonna stop. Okay, because the step is greater than the end minus 1. All right. Okay. Okay, so I want you to do this exercise, guys, but I'm not gonna give you the solution because I want you to do it to practice it yourself. Okay, and you can use Python visualizer. Now, they asked me how it's possible that the function range can have multiple input arguments. This will be covered in the object-oriented chapter, and this is because the function range is overloaded. Okay. So if anybody asks you now, how come function range can have multiple arguments and multiple parameters and each parameter will do something? That's because the function range is being implemented as an overloaded function. Guys, the core Python program comes with functions such as we saw the max, and we saw the sum to to compute the sum of the list, and will come with the basic classes such as integer, string, and list. While those are by no means are the built-in Python functions and the classes, the core Python function is small for efficiency and easy of use purposes. So in addition to those built-in core functions and the classes, Python has many more functions and the classes defined by the Python standard library. So the library is a collection of code written and compiled by some developer or someone else that is ready for you to use in your program. A standard library is a library that is considered part of the language and must be included with the Python system. So the Python standard libraries has multiple support. It supports network programming, socket programming, web application programming, GUI development, database programming, mathematical function, random generators, and media processing. Okay, so each module, okay, so the Python standard library is organized into modules, okay? Related functions and data types are grouped in the same modules, okay? So the functions defined in the module must be explicitly loaded into the program that we are writing before we can use it. There are millions of functions that are provided by the standard Python library, but for the sake of the simplicity, we will just take a look on how to use the math modules, okay? So the core Python language does not have a square root function. In order to have the square root function, sqrt, we have to use what? The standard library module that's called math. So similar to the turtle. So what you have to do is to import math, and then if you try to evaluate sqrt by itself, it's gonna give you an error. Okay, look at this. It's gonna give you an error because sqrt is not defined. But in order to invoke this kind of function, you have to use the prefix, which is the name of that library, dot the name of the function. Okay, so math.sqrt4, this will give you 2. Okay, so if you would like to, to see a lot of the supported functions by the math library, you can type help math. Okay, and the math library is implemented in such a way that it makes your life easier to invoke mathematical functions and even constants. Even pi, we can call pi, and we can get the exact accurate value of pi. Okay. For me, I just, for the sake of the assignment one, I'm gonna just go over the most important math functions that will help you in your assignment. So the sqrt will take what the root square of the argument x. So if x is equal to 16, the root square of it is equal to 4. Trunc x will truncate floating point value x to an integer. So what will happen? It will strip the number here into an integer part. The cosine, the sine, the tan are the trigonometric functions. Exponential is to do the exponent. The degrees is to convert x radians to degrees. And the radians is to do the vice versa. The log is the natural logarithmic to base e. And the log is overloaded as well because we can, compute the log of 16 to base 2. And this will give us what? 16 to base 2. This will give us 4. Okay, so let's take a look at the math functions supported by your library. So the absolute will return what? Will return the absolute value of your integer. The ceil will round the argument. So in case I have 2, the ceil will give it to me what? to the greater one. So it's going to give me 3. And in case of I have minus 2, 1, what's the greater than minus 2, 1 is minus 2. Okay, floor will strip it. Okay, will strip. So floor 2.1 is going to give me 2. Floor minus 2.1, it will do what? It will round it to the closest part. So it's going to be minus 3. So seal and floor are different. The exponent of 1 is 2.61, which is what's the value of the exponent. The log is returning the natural logarithmic of, as you can see, the log of e is going to give me 1. Log 10 to the base 10 is going to give you 1. Log 8 to the base 2 is going to give you 3. SQRT is going to give you what? Is going to give you 2. Okay, because the f mod, those are like trigonometric functions. The f mod is a good function which will return the remainder, okay, of x, y as a float. So like if we have x and y as a remainder, x and y as a float numbers, I would like to have the remainder. Okay, so instead of bothering ourselves with the calculation, it's going to give us 1.1. So I can verify this with you guys right now. So if I go here and I import math, all right, and I can do the okay, as I mentioned, help math will show you what's supposed to be done like this. It will show you all the functions that you have. So, and even has the factorial. We will do the f mod. Okay, so let's do math dot f mod. Okay, and what we have in our example is 2.4 and 1.3. Let's see that. So as you can see, the f mod is almost 1.1. Okay, so it's 1.00999. Okay, and those are the functions that you may use in your assignment. I want you to do this exercise. I want you to pause the video and do this exercise. The first exercise is using the math library. I want you to calculate the length of the hypotenuse in a right triangle who is other two sides 3 and 4. So the hypotenuse is the long side of a right triangle opposite to the right angle. Okay, the value of the Boolean expression that evaluates whether the length of the above hypotenuse is 5. The area of a disk, so here you have to find the area of a circle, and the Boolean expression that checks whether a point with the coordinate 5 is inside the circle with a center 0, 0 and radius 7. So that's something very interesting. So you need to review how to calculate the distance, okay, and you need to review how to calculate the area of the circle, and you need to review how to calculate the hypotenuse from calculus. Okay, so in order to calculate the hypotenuse, it's basically what? The hypotenuse is the square root, this one, basically it's gonna be what? 3 square plus 4 square. And here we have to evaluate if this value is equal to 5. And here we have to calculate the area of a circle. Okay, so let's take a look about the solution. Okay, so this is how we calculate the hypotenuse. And to check if it's equal to 5, actually it's equal to 5, it returns true. And to calculate the area of it's the pi multiplied by the area by the radius square, and to check whether, and that's it. Okay, so we have seen that we can use the built-in functions, print, evaluate, input, and the math functions. But can we do our own functions? Yes, we can. Okay, so how we can do our own functions? So in addition to the built-in functions that are provided by Python, like the absolute, like providing the length of a list, providing the sum of the list, and the print, we can define our own functions. And functions, wrapping your code into functions, has several desirable goals. The first goal is to make your code as modular as possible. So instead of developing a large program, you can break down the program into smaller, simpler, self-contained pieces. Each piece, which is another word, each function can be designed and implemented and debugged independently. And another reason is to what? Is to reuse your code. So as you saw, we can, we can recall the function sum for any list we define. Okay. The last thing, and this will be explained when we reach to the class implementation, is to encapsulate your implementation. So you need to, if you want to hide the way that you implemented your function from the user who's using that. As you saw, we did not know that the addition is happening by adding like self objects to the number of the object, in the class integer, unless we type help, and the developer of class integer provided us with the documentation to know that this is how it's done. Otherwise, you can hide it. Okay? So, modularity, code reuse, encapsulation are the main goals used to convert your code into functions. Okay, so how we can define our functions? By simply use the keyword def. And let's say that I want to define a function called f of x, and f of x return just f of x here, compute the value of x squared plus 10. Okay, so that's something is not available on the math library. So what is the name of your function is f. What's the input argument is x. What is this function is doing? As you can see, it's powering the number to 2 and adding it to 10 and then returning the result. Okay, so when we say the type of contract at the assignment, as you can see, what is here, guys? What is the input? It's a number. What's the input? It's a number. And what is the output? It's a number as well. So this is the type of contract. So as you can see, this is the function definition keyword. This is the name of the function. This is the variable name of the input argument, and the return is, this is the return that specifies the function output. Okay. Suppose that I have 1 to the power, as you can see here, 1 to the power 2 plus 10, that's 11. And if I have 3, it's 9 plus 10, it's 19. If I have 0, it's going to give you 10. Okay. What is the difference between return and print? If you remember, I told you that when you do print, it will show the string representation of the values computed. It will not return anything. Okay? However, here, it will return an output. Okay? So, let's take a look. F2 here is going to give you 14. And here is going to give, it's going to, like if you invoke it, it's going to print 14. But suppose that I want to multiply 2 to f to, like f2. This is gonna give me 28 because I'm returning a number. You remember the type of contract? I said that the type of contract here is number to number. Okay? However, here, what's the type of contract, guys? You're inputting a number, so it's a number to, this is what, if we evaluate it, if you remember, it's a non-type. So if I do the same thing here, what will happen is it's going to give me an error because I cannot do a multiplication between a non-type and integer type, okay? So that's the main difference between return and print. Okay, we can, I can show it to you in Python, okay? So file, new file, let's go here and let's take a look at this. Okay, so as you can see, guys, if I'm gonna run this, what will happen is I'm defining the two functions, and after running F1, the result will be returned, and here the result of F2 returns, but it's gonna be printed. Okay, now what we have to see that if I'm multiplying the value of the returned value of F1, I will have no issues. However, here I'm gonna run to an issue. So let's do this. Run module. Okay, name it lecture 3.1. Okay, that's exactly what's going to happen. Let's have it here. So here, this is exactly the thing, running function F1, printing the value that F1 returns, which is, what is the value of I'm returning? It's 25 plus 10 is 35. And running function F2, okay? And this, what will happen, instead of returning a value, it's gonna print it. So look at this. Result equal F25 is going to give you 35. Printing the value that F2 returns, it's none, okay? Because it belongs to the non-types. Function F1 returns a number, so we can use that number. The result of 3 multiplied of 5 is equal to 3 multiplied to 35 is 105. And here, why do we have a crash when we try to do 3 multiplied by 5? Why, guys? Why? Because we cannot do a multiplication between 3 integer and a value that is printed, which is a non-type. Okay? So the function f of x here return value of result, which can be used in an expression. Function prints the function here f at the right side, print the value of a result, but does not return anything, and I cannot use it in any expression. Okay, so do you remember how, like, the hypnosis? I want you guys to do an exercise to define your own hypnosis, okay? And the name of the function called hype, take 2 numbers. So when I want to define it, it's taking define hype, and hype has A and B, and it's supposed to return the value of C. The value of C, I can use it using the math, okay? So I can do import math, and the result equal to math sqrt to the height and the base, each of one like power to 2 and the sum of them, and after that I return the result. Okay, so that's it. So this function, write a function hello that take a name as an input and print a personalized welcome message. Note that it prints, so basically it doesn't do anything else. Okay, it doesn't do any return. So the type of contract defines what is the relationship between the input argument and the return argument. Okay, so or the input parameters and the return parameters. So the input parameters here is str and the return parameter is none. Okay, so as you can see, so hello and the name, and what will welcome, you see that, like hello Julia. When I invoke the function hello Julia, it's gonna print welcome Julia to the word of Python, and it doesn't return anything. Okay, so I'm gonna give you this. Write function range that take a list. You see, okay, now the type of contract is what here? The type of contract, guys, is I have a list as an input and retain the range of the numbers in the list. So it retains a number. Okay. So how to do that? Simply, how we can solve it, guys? How we can solve it? By using the method of the list. So range, and we have the list here as an and we can, what is the range? Okay, the range is the difference between the largest and the smallest number in the list. So basically we can use the function min and the function max. Okay, so the difference between the max minus the min, and this is what I'm gonna return. So define range, and range will take a list as an input argument, and it will return the maximum item of the list minus the minimum item of the list, and I'm gonna return. So another important thing, guys, when it comes to building a function is to use comments and docstrings. So the comments can be specified using what? The hash sign. So this is compute the result, and this is what return the result. The docstring can be used whenever you do help and invoke the function f here, or your function at the console. So what you can do here, so if you do, like if you have help, it doesn't show anything. But if we add a docstring, like for instance, you know, we can add the type of contract as well. So if we can say like 3, and we can say this this has a number to a number. Okay, and what will happen? It will compute the value of x to power 2 plus 10. Okay, and if I do help now to f, so what it will give me exactly what I wrote, and this is because I did it manually. It will not show the type of contract, but it will show exactly what is the main goal of this function. Okay, guys, by this we are concluding this lecture, and I will see you on Friday.